Up next in the broadcast, numerous American cities join in the rally against the ruling in Ferguson to not indict a police officer alleged of engaging in an unjust killing of an unarmed black teenager. The family of the victim calls the system rigged. Officials from Seoul and Tokyo sit down to work on bilateral relations for the first time since President Park and Prime Minister Abe both expressed hope for progress at their first official one-on-one meeting earlier this month. President Park addresses critics of her push for a creative economy paradigm shift. Visitors can now see the fruits of labor on display at a government-backed expo in Seoul. Primetime News begins now.
Hello and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live from Seoul. I am Kang Tae-ri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the latest efforts to improve bilateral relations with Japan, inspired by President Park and Prime Minister Abe's encounter at the APEC summit earlier this month. Senior officials from Korea and Japan met for talks in Seoul on this Thursday.
But little progress, though, came through from this dialogue, which many hoped would provide progress on the issue of Tokyo's wartime sexual slavery. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports on where we're headed.
For the fifth time this year, senior officials from Korea and Japan met to discuss Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. What's different about Thursday's meeting is that it came after President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe expressed hopes for tangible progress in the high-level talks when they met on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Around 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese military during the Second World War, and the issue has long been a thorn in their bilateral ties. Seoul has called on Tokyo to take sincere steps to compensate the aging victims, but Japan insists the matter was legally settled through a bilateral treaty in 1965. An official at Seoul's foreign ministry declined to provide details, but noted that positive progress was made at each round of talks. Despite recent controversy over the comfort women issue, the Japanese official reiterated Tokyo's stance about upholding the so-called Kono Statement, a landmark apology issued back in 1994. Also discussed was the planned trilateral foreign ministers meeting with China. The official expressed skepticism about the three top diplomats sitting down within this year, saying it would likely only happen after the December 14th elections in Japan. The two sides will meet again for a sixth meeting in Tokyo next month. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
North Korea has confirmed the official title of leader Kim Jong-un's younger sister amid speculations over her growing political presence in the regime. The Korean Central News Agency on Thursday referred to Kim Ya-jung as a deputy director of the Workers' Party of Korea, position roughly equal to vice minister. The 27-year-old was among the officials who accompanied Kim Jong-un when he visited a cartoon film studio in Pyongyang. She's believed to be one of her brother's key supporters in the absence of their once powerful aunt, Kim Kyung-hee, who has been missing from the public eye since the execution of her husband, Chang Song-taek. South Korea's chief nuclear envoy will visit Russia starting next Monday. Seoul's foreign ministry says Hwang Jun-guk will meet with his Russian counterpart during a three-day visit to discuss North Korea's nuclear program. This comes after North Korean special envoy Choi Ryong-hae's visit to Moscow last week, after which Russia's foreign ministry said the North is ready to return to the six-party talks without any preconditions. The multilateral dialogue involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Russia, and Japan, has been stalled for nearly 6 years.
Despite being one of President Park Geun-hye's signature initiatives, the creative economy paradigm still remains over the heads of many of her critics. Our next report by Song Ji-sun shows us some concrete examples of where President Park hopes the nation's economy will be headed.
Since our inauguration, President Park Geun-hye has been pushing her vision for a creative economy. Now it's time to see for yourself how far the paradigm has shifted so far. An expo that centers on the creative economy's achievements over the past 2 years kicked off on Thursday. Citing global recognition of her 3-year economic reform plan at the recent G20 summit, President Park stressed that the creative economy is the solution to spurring growth.
창조 경제가 모호하다, 방향이 잘못되었다고 얘기하는 분들이 있는 것으로 압니다. 그러나 그것은 창조 경제의 문을 열고 들어오지 않은 사람들의 이야기입니다. 두려워 말고 그 문을 두드려야 합니다.
This is the second event being held under this name, having merged similar past events aimed at supporting startups. 21 government ministries worked in tandem to organize the event, and more than 600 startups are taking part, more than 5 times the number of participants from last year. Visitors can experience creative economy business models in this creative village at this expo. Here you can see how products based on creative economy could be incorporated into everyday life in classrooms, offices, and homes. This is one technology that's soon to be commercialized, seeing how you look in certain clothes without having to put them on. The camera scans your body movements and dresses your virtual avatar.
When developed into an application, this technology can be adopted without much additional cost, utilizing cameras installed on TVs. We are already getting multiple inquiries from home shopping channels and fashion brands that want to integrate the technology.
The government is also providing customized consultations for startups to help small and mid-sized companies turn their creative ideas into reality. The event is open to the public, free of charge, throughout this weekend. 송지선, Arirang News.
A state-run think tank says Korea may hit a new record for exports next year. Our Shin Se-min reports on the outlook and what's expected to lead the growth.
Korea's economy is expected to rely even more heavily for growth next year, despite the country's efforts to stoke domestic consumption. The state-run think tank Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade expects the exports to exceed $600 billion for the first time ever, expanding 4.5% this year, double the pace of growth for domestic demand. The growth will be led by shipbuilders and makers of chips and cars. Export growth in shipyards is forecast to hit 7%, buoyed by exports of high-end offshore plants, liquefied natural gas, and container ships. For the manufacturers of semiconductors, wearable devices, and electric cars will fill the vacuum created this year by slowing demand for the maturing smartphone market. And the display industry will also see growth of 3.4% next year after contracting by nearly 7% this year. Korean makers will still face a flood of cheap Chinese display panels next year. However, the demand for large ultra-high definition or OLED or organic light emitting diode panels will provide the new growth opportunities. But it won't be a good news for everyone. The petrochemical and textile sectors are forecast to contract as a weak Japanese yen is expected to eat into Korean makers' profits. Oil refining is also expected to worsen in the face of a supply glut and the U.S. development of shale gas. But other risks remain. The think tank says a strengthening of the Korean currency, a growing number of Korean companies relocating their plants overseas, and the growth competition from the Chinese manufacturers will all weigh on Korean exporters. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The power shift in Samsung was made more visible with Wednesday's announcement to sell off some of the shares of its 4 affiliates. Now, analysts are expecting the next move to come next week. Our Lee Ji-yoon tells us more.
Samsung is getting ready for a generational power transfer. With its chairman Lee Gun-hee still in the hospital after suffering a heart attack in May, his 3 children are putting the group's restructuring plans into action. And Wednesday's news of Samsung selling shares in 4 of its affiliates proves just that. 46-year-old Lee Jae-yong, the chairman's only son and the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics, is widely expected to be the next in line to run the company. Now that Samsung has decided to do away with most of its non-profitable defense and chemical businesses, Lee is expected to take control of the group's core units. Those are electronics, financial services, and construction. As for Lee Bu-jin, the chairman's eldest daughter, she will oversee Hotel Shola while controlling trade and catering units. Lee Gun-hee's youngest daughter, Lee Seo-hyun, will call the shots for the group's fashion and media branches. Samsung's entities are held together by a labyrinth of cross-shareholdings. Therefore, the Lee family is able to maintain control over the group despite holding a small amount of shares. While a leadership change is underway, the company is also planning to carry out a reshuffle of its top officials sometime next week. Samsung's tumbling earnings and weak smartphone sales are all the more reason for why the company feels the need for a management shakeup. Lee Jun, Arirang News.
U.S. financial firm Goldman Sachs is investing more than $36 million in Korea's top food delivery application. Pedal Minjuk, launched back in 2010, gained popularity in Korea for successfully launching a food delivery service on a mobile platform, enabling users to place orders at local restaurants without having to make a phone call. The company says the investment will be used to help expand its services overseas by improving its software technology beginning in Japan. Last month alone, 4 million deliveries were made through this application, with more than 140,000 food businesses participating in the service. Now, Korea is known for having some of the fastest internet speeds in the world, but it's about to get even faster, perhaps even 100 times faster. Korean researchers have developed a device they say will do just that while cutting costs in the process. Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
The process of getting internet service at home is more complicated than you might think. At the moment, you try to connect. A signal from the computer terminal box is sent to the internet provider company, which then relays it through 2 other outside networks. The 4-step process is not only complex, it's expensive, since there's a fee for using those other networks, which are foreign-made. But change is coming. Korea's Electronic Telecommunication Research Institute has developed a device that simplifies the process.
The optical fiber cable transceiver will cut costs by 1/10 compared to the previous process, and it's made to provide ultra-high-speed access.
The current system provides internet at an average speed of 100 megabytes per second. The new device provides it at 100 times faster, at around 10 gigabytes per second. The new product is still not commercialized, but is expected to become a hot item once it is, not just because of its speed. Since all networks are integrated, the service price for network and operations could be cut by 1/3.
When the device hits the domestic market, sales will rise at least 50%, and it is expected to open up foreign markets in the near future.
Experts say the new device is expected to bring in roughly $91 million in sales and will be implemented in the 5G telecommunications and other high-quality multimedia systems. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea's cultural items are increasingly being valued by UNESCO as some of the world's most important assets, and now the agency has decided to register Korea's nongak, a type of traditional farm music dating back to the early 20th century. Originally, the music was performed in groups as a way to encourage farmers on the field. Other Korean items on the UNESCO list include the folk song Arirang and the making and sharing of kimchi, known as kimjang. This Thursday evening, not one but 2 film festivals opened in Seoul. One has a long and prestigious history, while the other is in its first installment. Our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won takes us through both events.
10 representative films from 10 members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, will be screened for 8 days through next Thursday. It's the first film festival in Korea that focuses solely on films from the 10 Southeast Asian countries, which include Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia. Directors and film professionals from the participating countries will visit Korea to hold talks with local audiences after their films are shown. The festival was organized by the ASEAN Korea Center in celebration of the 2-day Korea-ASEAN Summit scheduled for early December in Busan.
The culture ministries from each of the 10 ASEAN members have recommended one representative film from their countries. They range from documentaries and dramas to action and romance. The films have a good mix of popular appeal and artistic value.
Organizers hope the film festival offers a window for Koreans to see the lives of people living in ASEAN countries. Elsewhere in Seoul, another festival, the nation's largest, dedicated to independent films, gets underway Thursday. The Seoul Independent Film Festival is marking its 40th anniversary this year. Since 1975, the festival has contributed to discovering new talents and creative minds. This year's will screen 125 films, both from inside and outside of Korea, over a 9-day period. 46 of them, 11 full-length films and 35 short films, will be in competition for various awards. 박지원, Arirang News.
Mass protests over the Michael Brown case in the U.S. state of Missouri have continued for the third straight night as tensions remain high across the country.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, these rallies have erupted in hundreds of American cities, calling for justice in the shooting death of the unarmed black teenager.
That's right. Many communities nationwide are still outraged by the no indictment verdict for police officer Darren Wilson. Thousands are taking to the streets again in anger over the case, which has sparked a highly emotional debate about race relations in the U.S. And while the situation in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson has calmed, fresh protests have now spread to other parts of the world. Our Kim Min-ji has more.
Protests spread across the United States over a grand jury decision not to indict a white police officer that shot and killed an unarmed black teenager in Ferguson, Missouri in August. Ferguson, where the majority of residents are black, has been at the center of violence, with a number of commercial buildings burned down and businesses looted since the announcement. Authorities have increased their presence in the area to quell the unrest. There were also demonstrations in the streets of Boston, New York, and Los Angeles.
We believe Officer Darren Wilson should have been indicted and brought to justice for the murder of Michael Brown. Since he wasn't, we're not going to quit fighting.
More than 400 people have been arrested across the United States. The protest movement has also spread to global cities, including Toronto and London. Meanwhile, Leslie McSpadden, the mother of victim Michael Brown, said remarks made by Darren Wilson, the police officer in question, were disrespectful. In an interview with ABC News, Wilson said he had a clean conscience because he knew he did his job right. Attorneys for the Brown family said they would push for federal charges against Wilson, alleging the grand jury process was rigged from the start. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And shifting to Europe, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, has kicked off a crucial meeting in Vienna that will determine the future direction of the global oil market. Talks on this Thursday are expected to focus on slashing oil production levels around the world. The idea is to remove surplus crude from the market in a bid to bolster sagging petroleum prices. But 4 Gulf state members say they're opposed to the plan. The oil-rich producing group led by Saudi Arabia includes Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. They say the market will eventually stabilize itself and that the consequences of the proposed reduction are too difficult to predict. Oil prices have plunged nearly 30% in the past 4 months, hitting a 4-year low at $80 per barrel. And shifting to the latest on the Ebola crisis, a new experimental vaccine has been hailed as one of the best hopes at combating the deadly outbreak in West Africa. According to the New England Journal of Medicine on Wednesday, the unproven vaccine has produced what scientists called promising results in an early clinical trial. 20 healthy volunteers in the U.S. were injected with the experimental drug in September. In each test subject, an immune response was detected without any serious side effects, raising hopes of its effectiveness in safely preventing the viral infection. GlaxoSmithKline, the British pharmaceutical giant, says it will be able to produce 1 million doses of the drug every month by the end of next year. And finally, the European Union is continuing to put the pressure on Google's vast internet empire. A panel of EU watchdogs ordered Google on Wednesday to extend its right to be forgotten feature to its international sites that end with a .com. They said it was a necessary measure to protect digital privacy laws. The right to be forgotten refers to the option to request a delisting of unwanted records from Google's search results. The popular search engine said it has already received more than 170,000 requests for the online deletions. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with Thursday Sports Rundown. The UEFA Champions League wrapped up match day 5 of the group stage, and 3 teams earned tickets to the knockout phase with a match to spare. Yaya Sanogo and Alexis Sanchez found the net as Arsenal took down Group D leaders Borussia Dortmund 2-0 to earn their 15th straight round of 16 berth. In Group A, Atletico Madrid thrashed Olympiacos 4-0 behind a brilliant hat-trick by Mario Mandzukic to top the standings and move on. Meanwhile, Bayer Leverkusen, despite falling a second time to AS Monaco 1-0, found themselves leading Group C and into the next round when Zenit defeated Benfica. Now just 5 spots remain going into the final group stage matches next month. Now to Thursday's KBL doubleheader. First to the hard court in Ulsan, the Mobis Phoebus took home court against the KCC Aegis. And the Aegis keep up with the league's top team early, but the defending champs Mobis on the back of Ricardo Ratliff put in the shots that count for their 16th win of the season. Meanwhile, the ET Land Elephants stamp out the LG Sakers thanks to another Ricardo. This time it's Ricardo Powell. They get their 5th win in a row and 4th straight at home in Incheon. And soaring to the V-League. First to the ladies, the IBK Altos faced off against the Korea Expressway Zenith in Hwaseong. And IBK jumps to a 2-1 lead before Korea Expressway cuts them off to force the deciding set. And there the Zenith are first to 15 points for their 4th straight win. And for the men, the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers stepped all over the OK Savings Bank Russian Cash in straight sets, snapping a 3-game losing streak. Kevin LaRue, filling in for an injured Lieberman Agamez, impressed in his debut. And moving on to the Sun Yang doping scandal, the Chinese swimmer is facing the possibility of a long-term ban that may take him out of the next Olympics. The World Anti-Doping Agency is mulling over appealing the 22-year-old's secret ban to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And if they take action, WADA may elect to penalize him under their new rules, which come into effect in 2015 and double the doping ban to 4 years, meaning he'll miss the 2016 Rio Games. A 2-year ban will also have the same effect. And ending on a somber note, Australian cricketer Philip Hughes has died days after being struck in the head during a domestic match in Sydney. While up at bat, the 25-year-old Hughes was drilled by a bouncing 145-kilometer-per-hour delivery near the back of the neck, collapsing on the spot. He died in the hospital without regaining consciousness 2 days later. Now, family and friends and teammates as well expressed their grief in statements, and tributes flooded in for Hughes, who would have celebrated his 26th birthday on the 30th. And that wraps it up for now. Your weather's up next. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. Well, we are under clear skies nationwide, but rain clouds will gradually move in overnight, and this will lead to showers tomorrow, which should begin on the west coast before spreading nationwide. About 10 to 40 millimeters will fall in Seoul as well as Gangwon province, and about 5 to 20 down south. Keep in mind that the rainfall may be accompanied by strong winds for the western and southern coastlines. Other than that, expect temperatures to be warmer than the seasonal average for the rest of the week. Looking ahead, conditions should briefly clear up on Saturday before another round of rainfall falls on Sunday, leading to a drop in numbers next week. Here are the readings for Friday. Seoul hits 11 while Gwangju and Busan hit the mid-teens. On to other regions. Jeju reaches 20, Tokyo hits 14, while Kumgang hits 5. That's all for now. Join me for more updates after midnight.
Okay, thanks, Pogyong. And that's Primetime News for this Thursday. I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching.
And I'm Kang Chiri. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you again soon.